Good morning. I'm Norah O'Donnell. It is September 11th, 2021, and we have come to Lower Manhattan overlooking the World Trade Center Memorial as America remembers the nearly 3,000 people who lost their lives 20 years ago. We're here to reflect on how America and how our world has changed since then. A short time ago, President Biden arrived here for the remembrance. He also plans to visit the other two sites where terrorists crashed planes on 9/11, the Pentagon and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. In just a few minutes, the first moment of silence will be observed, marking the time the first plane hit the North Tower. And later, in what is a moving annual ritual, the names of those killed will be read one by one. It's hard not to be emotional on a day like today, and certainly for so many families and friends who lost ones on this day 20 years ago, and those who helped respond and are still suffering to this day with pain and remorse. Joining me here overlooking the rebuilt World Trade Center and Memorial are CBS News Chief Political Analyst John Dickerson and CBS's Margaret Brennan, the moderator of Face the Nation. And it's good to see both of you this morning. It is a beautiful Saturday morning, much like it was 20 years ago, and many have gathered here to pay tribute. I was down there yesterday, and many families have come, left roses, American flags, with the names that are etched now in this memorial. And John, I just think about, when we think about how much the world has changed, today is just a painful day for many people.
That's right. It's about a human loss, about mothers and fathers and siblings, the lives lost and the lives that were changed forever. So much was unleashed by 9/11, debates about politics and the relations between countries and religions. It defined our age, but that's all kind of abstract. What today does is it reorients us to the 3,000 people who woke up on a beautiful day like today, went to work or got on a plane and never came home. The weddings that didn't happen, all the pain left behind, the Thanksgiving tables that were empty, the 3,000 kids who lost a parent. And that is the toll of the evil of today. But there's also the other story, is the people who protected human life, the heroes on Flight 93, and the first responders who ran into burning buildings simply because other humans were there, and they did that because they dedicated their lives to the preciousness of life. That's what we sit with today during those moments of silence.
Mm-hmm. And Margaret, I'm struck by that as well, because you know, for those of us that were alive 20 years ago, this is one of the most seminal moments in our life. I mean, we remember where you were on 9/11 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Everyone does. They remember that first instinct. And just standing here and hearing those bagpipes in the distance a few moments ago, they are always so haunting. You hear them at funerals, and that is what this feels like in some ways, the memorial for the 3,000 lost. And John, you rightly talk about that feeling of how personal it is for those 3,000, their families, the blast impact of the loss, though, as a country. This moment has become sort of the benchmark by which we measure all horrific loss. 9/11 has become a term in our lexicon to talk about that. That trauma of the past 20 years also stretched through. It reshaped us as a country for those who didn't know someone on one of those planes, in one of those buildings. They felt it too, really in a visceral way. And sometimes it feels like that was that brief moment of unity that we look back on, and it feels like a moment in time. But today, that once again reminds us that there is a moment as a country where we can come together and grieve what was lost, that sense of our untouchable superpower status that was so breached in that moment with these terror attacks, turning civilians into targets. And that's a loss as well.
Yeah. And in some ways, too, at the time, unleashed a great deal of patriotism and nationalism at that time that I think that has eroded in our politics 20 years later. I mean, there was a sense of a one America at that time 20 years ago that you know, we miss and we remember that, and is sadly so different today.
The people not only in New York who stood in line to donate blood when they thought there were going to be more survivors, but all over the country, people who wanted to be in the community of other people because they just wanted to be near other Americans.
I want to go now to the Pentagon and check in with CBS's David Martin. He was actually there at the Pentagon on 9/11. He has covered every development in the war on terror since then. And David, good to see you. And how are they remembering there today?
Well, I certainly know where I was on 9/11. I was running as fast as I could around the Pentagon trying to get to the scene of the blast, and I vividly remember turning the corner of the building and seeing this scene of destruction, people lying all over the ground, some of them obviously badly burned, vehicles on fire, and of course the burning hole.
And we just noted that we saw Presidents Clinton and Presidents Obama arrive here in Lower Manhattan along to join President Biden and the First Lady as they pay their respects here today. We should note, of course, the firefighters. The FDNY Engine 54 here in Manhattan suffered the greatest loss on September 11th. 15 of its members died that day, and so our Mola Lenghi is there for us this morning. Good morning, Mola.
Well, good morning, Norah. This is Engine Company 54 in Midtown Manhattan. They were among the first to respond that morning on 9/11, and as you mentioned, they have that unfortunate